Good morning, everybody. It is Road to Recovery, and it's the new year, man. I didn't get a chance to kick off a New Year's session because I had a lot of family activities going on. Yeah, it's Road to Recovery, and this go live is for those of you who are looking to improve your lives and break free of your porn addiction. I primarily talk about you know everything from spirituality to strategies, tactics, anything you can really think about in terms of your porn addiction and trying to break free from it. Um, yeah, I need to get back into the swing of things because I haven't done a Monday morning chat. It seems like forever. At the end of December, I got my butt kicked with some COVID, unfortunately. So it kind of wore me down. And then on top of that, I had to come back here, and then we went right into the holidays, so there wasn't a lot of chance for me jumping away. But now that we're in the new year, we can finally talk about, did you set that resolution? You're going to break free of that addiction. One of the things I've been doing recently has been reflecting on what my life was like as a porn addict, and it's I typically think about the nighttime because that's when I was most active, but I did a lot of acting out in the mornings too. I mean, it was actually kind of part of my morning routine. If I was the first out of the house and I got to off to my job, I was fine. I didn't have to worry about acting out. But like if my wife left first, then I had a little playtime for myself and I could jump right back into it. Of course, my time was condensed because I had to get to work, but I would try to get as much porn watching in as I possibly could. On reflection about that whole cycle, one of the things I think about is I was in my kitchen yesterday with my wife, and my wife was just getting 8 or 9 tasks done simultaneously. She was cooking dinner, cleaning up after herself, cleaning the floors, putting things away, getting her lunch set for the next day. She was doing all of that simultaneously. Like she had a plan and she was executing her plan. And I was sitting there watching this busybody just go to town. And I was a little jealous that she could do all of those things and do all of them basically simultaneously. In other words, she was like multitasking. Um, and I think about what it took for her to do all that. She's been at this for a really long time, and that's part of just her nature. She doesn't even think really. She's about the actual task itself. She's just doing what comes naturally, and she's got some goals, and the goals go into her mind, and she's just executing on her goals. And I think about what a struggle it is for me doing those sorts of things. And I don't want to lay everything at the floor of my porn addiction. And I don't want to blame my porn addiction for all of those things, but um, practice does make perfect. The execution and my inability to execute at the level that she executes at, I think is partly due to the fact that I was just such a hyper focus freak when it came to my pornography. And I do have hyper focus issues. It's not just with the pornography. I mean, I can hyper focus on just about anything, but when my focus is in, I have a difficult time just being able to switch tasks. And for me, a person like me, watching somebody like her, I'm just like, gosh, that's amazing. Like what you're doing is amazing. She can go to sleep knowing that she got all of those things accomplished in a really short period of time. Whereas I still to this day do not have that capability. It's just a wonderment to me that she could pull something like that off. But I think, um, you know, there was a lot of time where the draw of the pornography contributed to my lack of being able to stretch myself, be able to extend myself into other areas, not just task management, but moving outside of just basic task management. What were the outer circle behaviors when we talk about the SAA, circle, 3 circle technique? A lot of those outer circles behaviors that I'm aware of now, but I didn't have any um, awareness of when I was not an addict. I couldn't stretch myself. I couldn't reach out and do those big, broad, goals or life tasks because I just constantly was getting sucked back into the inner circle. And I think a lot of what I went through, and between my 20s, 30s, and even into my 40s, I just wasn't capable. I, Basically 30 years of not being incompetent, but being handicapped by my inability to move beyond my addiction. It's crippling. It's really crippling. In sobriety, I have learned to extend myself into other areas. I had to. There was no other choice. Um, the other choice was complete and absolute boredom. So I started forcing myself into areas where I felt uncomfortable, and started moving my task management over into other areas of my life that I hadn't yet explored. And that's been a good thing because it helped build a better me. And when I talk to new sponsees, when I'm bringing other sponsees on, that's the first thing I kind of discuss with them is that, this addiction holds you back. It holds you back in so many different areas because when you're comfortable in that one area and you start spending more and more and more time inside of it, because the porn is just so interesting. When you start spending more and more and more time, that means you're not doing other things. And for me, the general execution meant that I wasn't doing simple chores around the house, wasn't cleaning up after myself, was not spending a lot of time planning or organizing things. And no wonder I was experiencing, some partial anxiety and stress because things that I should have been focusing on were falling apart. Anyway, the purpose of me doing a Monday morning chat, now that we're into that introduction, is to allow others to be able to chat in. So I've opened up the chat. You can just come on in if you have any comments, questions, concerns about porn addiction. Feel free to type them out below, and I'll read some things. As a matter of fact, speaking of reading some things, I'm going to go out to. I had some good comments on some of my YouTube stuff, and I'm going to go look at those right now and just read them out to you guys so that you can hear what some of the comments were. Let's go here. That was not the one. All right. I should have had this prepped, but I didn't. So a commentator had said, I'm curious, what do you think? Do you think addiction to some extent is a choice? For example, 50% choice, 50% circumstances, brain habit structure? Because whenever I'm in a bad situation, I give myself an excuse to turn my brain off and just consume the poison, while also having a cognitive dissonance afterwards where I really regret it. And I'll just read my reply. There is always a choice. There's always a choice, guys. It's just more difficult in addiction to make choices that act against feeding the addiction. The brain wants to complete its routine. To act against the craving is to experience withdrawal. Our lower brain fights against our frontal lobes when we make choices that don't maintain addictive patterns. The early battle in recovery is trying to get the frontal lobes to make the correct choices because those thoughts are counter to what the lizard brain wants, right? So we know, if you spend any time around my channel here, we know that dopamine locks away the memory of what we do. People, places, things, everything that's around us, situations, the situations before you were acting out, the situations after you're acting out, the situations during you're acting out. Any of those things can be triggers, right? But it's not storing that memory of what it sees inside of the cognitive reasoning area of your brain. No, it's storing it to a lower area of the brain, a section of the brain that is used by our great ancestors who were not human beings, and by other other animals. And for the longest time, life forms on this planet formed memories through via association. They did not use any sort of cognitive reasoning because that function of the brain didn't even exist in many animals. So we're kind of special in that way that we got, this cognitive reasoning area inside of our brain that can, also deal with memories, but we also have another area in our brain that can also deal with memories. And when it gets into that primal area, those memories are stored as habits, right? The habits and routines are what it likes to remember. It wants to know that we're talking about the brain, the lower area of the brain. The lower of the brain wants to be able to form these habits and associations, so that it uses triggers and cravings to know when it has to do things to survive, which was the primary purpose of all of that, of its evolutionary reasoning. So yeah, we're making that battle because for human beings, we've got two areas of the brain now that can, process information. But one area of the brain is primal. It's the area of the brain that's built for survival. And our cognitive and reasoning side, while it can certainly be used for survival and arguably is, um, there's a fight going on. There's a fight going on between the two sections of our brain. And unfortunately, with the habit forming side of the brain, it takes a while to imprint the information that's required. But once it's there, it takes a long time for it to go away. And so, with all the reasoning we have in place, that doesn't mean that magically things just disappear from our lizard brains. We've got to wait that process out until the triggering and craving mechanisms that have been stored there slowly but surely, and they do slowly but surely go away. Time varies depending on your level of addiction. If you've been at this process of using pornography for 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to probably take a little bit longer to lose those habit cycles than, say, a person that's maybe 6 months to a year in, right? So it's going to be time consuming. And I like to say that, if you got, years, even decades in this addiction, don't expect anything to go away overnight, man. As a matter of fact, you may want to just consider yourself as being a lifelong addict, because some of those things probably will never go away, but that's okay. Getting back to what I was saying here to this commenter, the whole point, of me saying that is that when you start out early on, when you say, you know what, damn it, I am done with this addiction. I am done being a porn addict. You've got to take the initial step of saying, I am an addict. I am an addict. And all the weight that comes along with saying that means that there's going to be things that happen inside of your mind that you have absolutely no control over. Meaning that we've stored it in our lizard brains, right? Like, you can't tell your lizard brain what to do. Your lizard brain is a process in its own right. And it's going to take a lot of effort and planning for you to overcome those urges. So when we get somebody into program, when we talk about 12-step programs, and when we're bringing somebody that's new to program, we're spending a lot of time with them, helping them understand that, yeah, this is going to suck, and you better have a plan. That's why I spend so much time on my channel on recovery planning, right? You better have a plan. And recently I've done, by the way, you can start to see I'm filling up my channel with the tactics. It's a new category I've added, and I'm throwing as many tactics out there, and I'll be adding more and more to that. So go check that out if you have the chance. But you need to spend a significant amount of time. Like, once you've said you want to kick this habit, it's not about white knuckling at that point. You've got to spend a little bit of time about really contemplating how you're going to use a strategy to overcome this dilemma. This dilemma being that you've got programming inside of your mind. Oh, for some reason, I lost my internet connection for just a second there. So glad you're back with me. Sorry about that. So yeah, anyway, that was a fantastic question. Yeah, we've got to spend a lot of time once you've made that commitment to doing the organization of wanting to get out of your addiction. And that's a pretty heavy process. And there's going to be a struggle going in with it, which means that you're going to have to do the best you possibly can to avoid your triggers, know how to overcome cravings, uh, you know, set a plan in place that's going to give you the best chance of being able to make it that first 30 days. Hey, man, if you can make it past 30 days, that's the biggest struggle I deal with all of my sponsees. The first 30 days is the hardest. It absolutely is the hardest because all of a sudden now cravings are going to kick your ass. There's going to be triggers you didn't even know about. You formed associations with your environment that you're completely unaware of. And so once you start not acting out anymore, all of a sudden you're going to hit those triggers and you're going to stumble over them. And you're just going to be like, holy shit, I'm just craving it. I don't know why. Well, you know the answer now, right? You actually did form, whether you were aware of it or not, you did form associations with your external environment. And now you're going to have to start working on breaking those patterns, and you're going to stumble over those things all the damn time. All right, let's see if I can find another one. Hang on a second here. By the way, if anyone's listening, feel free to leave a comment in the chat, and I will answer them. Here's a second by the same poster. Have you heard of cases where people wake up in the middle of the night with intense, almost unbearable urges? Do you have any good advice regarding this? During the best abstination periods, the nights were the reason I wasn't able to hold out. The phone was in another room as well. So yeah, this is a very, very common problem. And the thing that sucks about it, right, is that once you fall into the realm of imagination and fantasy, that you can self-trigger. And if it's at nighttime, guess what? You don't have any control over avoiding the trigger. You can't control what you do in your sleep. So this is what I replied with. Fantasy does not always happen while we are conscious. So when the triggering already happens, you can't avoid it. You now have to go through the mitigation tactics. In this situation, I would personally get up and go out to my kitchen and get a glass of cold water. That is to say, I would relocate, which means changing zones, do something that stimulates the senses, drink cold water, and get my mind to redirect while the erection goes away. The redirection can be anything from reading a sports article or picking up a book, maybe even listening to music or watching some TV. I'll add that sometimes you can wake up with an erection but not be triggered into using porn. Very important, because sometimes just having an erection doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be triggered into going through the habit loop. If you aren't worried about acting out, then the mitigation might be necessary. Some guys can just wait out the erection. All right. I hope you found that one useful, and we got some comments out here. Leonardo, hey, Mr. Costa has joined us. How are you doing? I got to bring you on one day, and we can do a chat together. I've been porn-free for 19 days. I'm 23 years old, and I don't want PMO screwing up my brain anymore. Can you make videos, stories of porn addicts? I love. I am very curious to know how and where you overcame your addiction despite all the intensity you went through and experiencing the past. Oh yeah, all of that information is, my stories of a porn addict really breaks it down. If I gave a summary of what I went through, I started at a very young age. I was my father, this is before the internet days, that my father had stacks and stacks and stacks of pornography around the house, Playboy magazines, and then some harder stuff like Hustler and Penthouse. And, I just had at it, man. The second my father was a traveling salesman, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she was out doing lots of different things. So when the time allowed me, I would go sneak some magazines from the stash. And again, I started at a very young age. So that built my early association of pornography. And then when the internet age finally kicked in, I considered myself to be an early pioneer. I was before the days of cell phones and smartphones and all those things. I was on my PC, and I discovered very quickly that when the internet kicked off, um, people who wanted to consume pornography found the most creative ways of being able to share that, mostly through news groups, but also through websites and bulletin board systems and that sort of thing. But man, I was a monster collector. I was collecting early on, and even back then, this is like in the early '90s. I found that I could gain access to more pornography than I could have possibly imagined. Could have possibly imagined. It was slow getting it, but um, it's bizarre about how quickly, despite the small footprint of users on the internet, how quickly the collaboration world happened in regard to just accumulating pornography. Even by today's standards, I mean, you go back and just look at what the average news group was like back then. It was insane, man. I mean, the videos weren't typically weren't over 640 bit resolution. It was a really small video area, usually to fit the screens that were the VGA screens that were happening back then. But still, it was insanity about the level of pornography that existed in the early '90s. Just that the typical average person didn't know how to get access to it, but I found access to it right away. And you can listen to some of my videos about how I did that collecting. I was a massive hoarder. Yeah, so that's kind of like that's the preview. But yeah, I can really appreciate the PMO screwing up the brain, because that's exactly what happens, and we got to stay away from it. Incidentally, I tell a lot of my sponsees that this is for people that are new, that are listening to my channel. When I bring a sponsee for the first time, I actually tell them to go masturbate. I say, don't. You know what you want to do? Go try to masturbate and not use porn. This is how you know when you're an addict, right? Go try to masturbate and don't use porn. Tell me what that experience is like. And they usually come back to me and like, I couldn't do it. I was like, yeah, you couldn't do it because you need porn in order to get hard, to get an erection. And it sucks. It's like your entire morning, every single morning, you were eating like I don't know what's the most fattening, disgusting thing. Cinnamon bun. You're eating a cinnamon bun every single morning for like 10, 15 years. And then all of a sudden you have to eat a rice cake. You'd probably just take one little bite and just like, oh God, it's disgusting. That's what happens, man. That's the association, that strong bonding that your lizard brain is making with that content. So when you actually have to do, masturbation, which is a normal function, right? It's a normal function. When you can't masturbate anymore because your association to that stimulus is so ingrained that it's impossible. It's impossible to even get hard without even doing anything. And I tell them, don't cheat and try imagining, pornography inside of your mind. It's like, no, I just want you to try stimulating yourself. And that's usually the dead giveaway that you're an addict, because your association with that content is that strong. Yeah, and I even tell my sponsees, it's like, it's best in that first 90 days, it's best if you don't masturbate. It really is best if you don't masturbate. But if you have a breaking point and you just go into the shower and yank one off, I don't consider that a break in acting out, because you're not really acting out. Just if you go do it, you go do it. And I would never, as a sponsor, like knock a sponsee for going and jerking one off. It's best though if you can, like, in the first 90 days, just don't masturbate. If you can pull that off. It's like nice pun right there. But if you can manage doing that, the research has shown that there's just a better opportunity for you succeeding later on in your recovery effort if you can just hold off of sex for a short period of time. And that's it. Yeah, if you can stop with the PMO, that's great. But if you decide to masturbate, but you're not using pornography in that, person like me, I personally would not knock you for that. Especially young men, man. When you're like in your freaking 20s, dude, and I get it. The object here is not to make an enemy of sex. I will state that clearly. You're not making sex the enemy. You're making your relationship to pornography the problem, the situation that you're trying to deal with. But sex in and of itself is not the enemy. That's good. Anybody have any other questions? If not, I am going to wrap up the good questions this morning and good comments out on the YouTube. That's the purpose of having these Monday morning chats. If you have any other comments, questions, or concerns, you can. I should announce this. I usually answer all my DMs on X. I have, formerly known as Twitter. I have stopped using X this week. It's because I got shadow banned yet again. And of course, the fine folks at the organization formerly known as Twitter have not told me why I was shadow banned. So did some reading up on it and discovered that I could stay away for 3 days, and theoretically their scripts should allow me to be unshadow banned. So I'm going to try that out. So this week I'm just laying off of Twitter. You won't see me out there at all. If you have any comments or concerns, you can drop me a DM, and I promise on X I will try to catch up with it after the shadow ban is theoretically over. And if not, you could also email me at road, the number 2, recovery, the number 11 at yahoo.com. Again, that's road to recovery 11 at yahoo.com, and I will reply to all of that. I'll be back next Monday, and in the meantime, also look forward to my teacher tactics. I got more tactics I'm going to be coming out with, and I'll be pumping those things out all this week. Also, I am still looking for an interviewee. If you've been in recovery for more than 90 days, I would love to talk to you. I'm also looking for anybody who might be an expert in a respected field, whether you're a CSAT or a licensed clinical social worker. If you would like to come talk to me about porn addiction, I would love to have you on. I love having these conversations, and you can look at my interviews to see some of the fantastic interviews I've done in the past. And if you're curious or maybe want to be protective about your anonymity, I promise your anonymity. We will keep you anonymous. I can even do voice blurs, screen blurs, you name it. We'll try to keep you anonymous if you choose to do that. Anyway, this has been Road to Recovery. I am signing off. Thank you for tuning in this morning, and please stay on that road to recovery. 2024, guys, you can do it. Take care of yourself.